Hey everyone, Scott Stalker here. I want to continue on with my conversation about personal development as I introduce you to the next book in my 2024 reading list. This one, Helmet for My Pillow by Robert Leckie. Now for some of you, that name may sound familiar, maybe even the book sounds familiar. And that's likely because Robert Leckie's book, which is just remarkable, which is why it's on my reading list, was the catalyst, was one of two books, at least that I know of, that led to the HBO special and the creation of the miniseries The Pacific, which is, in my opinion, one of the greatest miniseries ever created. I liked it a little bit better than Band of Brothers, but this isn't a measuring contest. It just really resonated well with me, likely because I'm a Marine. But if you're a history buff, a war buff, any of those that like to read about history and battles of the past, this book, Helmet for My Pillow by Robert Leckie, is one you have to read. And I would also offer, for those of you, now I'm retired now, for those of you that are still in uniform today, and the National Defense Strategy and our national security strategy and all of our strategic documents has us focusing on the threat in the Pacific, our competition with China, and everything laid out in those guiding documents. Often you'll find that it's not something new that you got to recreate. It's history that we need to learn from. And this book is a great starting point. So this book is in many ways a memoir by Robert Leckie, and it takes us through his journey as a young man, a young boy, enlisting in the Marine Corps in 1942, shortly after the events of 7 December 1941 on Pearl Harbor. And it talks about how he went through that process, and then shortly gets us right into the middle of action, whether it's on Guadalcanal, Peleliu, or other battles that he took place in. And he does a remarkable job throughout the fights that he's in and the battles that he's in, really dedicating time to capturing his thoughts, whether it's on the back of a napkin or wherever he could write, so years later he can compile his thoughts and share them with all of us in this book. A remarkable way, and I'll tell you, it really touches a lot of the things that we got to be aware of as either leaders make decisions to send our troops into war, or for those of us in battle, things we can expect and anticipate to run into. We have to always be prepared for, in many ways, a lot of things he deals with, which could be our worst day ever. So while this book does reflect on the historical context of everything that's going on around him, in many ways, Robert doesn't, in a macro level, focus on all of that. He focuses predominantly on his own personal experiences, and he talks about the relationships he made and some of the humorous things that went on in his life in battle, in combat, while he's deployed, whether at sea or in places like Guadalcanal, New Britain, you name it, all of the battles, Peleliu, that he went through, and some of the relationships, but also some of the hardships. And so it's a personal memoir that he reflects on his experiences and shares them all with you. The book vividly gets down and dirty into the experiences, the hardships, the camaraderie, the exhaustion of combat, and all of the challenges that go on, and even some of the hardships that he personally went through when he needed to take a break during one point in one of the battles he was in, because he wasn't sleeping, and he wasn't sleeping due to a variety of different things brought on, quite frankly, through what we know today is post-traumatic stress disorder. And so this book talks about that. Now, if you read a little bit later on in other books that Robert put out, he's a renowned author, put out many, many books, I think he would probably agree with me saying that he went from all of that and learned how to take it into post-traumatic stress and post-traumatic growth. And he really became someone mindful of the treachery and the danger of war and how that made him grow as a man and as a father and a husband. Throughout this book, he explores the toll that PTSD took on him. He explores the loss of his fellow Marines and how powerful and all of the emotions that come with that. Sometimes the emotions of an individual died right next to you, but you got to continue to fight and move on. And that sounds maybe a little bit easier. It's easier said than done. Although when bullets are snapping and cracking over your head, you got to act. And Robert reverted back to his training. He followed his NCOs and his officers, and he did what he needed to do. But there's a lot of realism in this book, some that might not be comfortable for a lot of people, but I still highly recommend this book. Additionally, the book wrestles with the idea of what happens to someone, whether they're a soldier, Marine, whatever, when they come from combat experiences and then they get reintroduced to society, and how challenging that is. I know from my perspective, having done this many times, I always often wanted to just be alone and slowly come back into society. I didn't want to go to a big city or someplace loud or with a lot of people. I wanted to just have a little bit of time on the beach, quiet place. And then Robert really talks about reconciling his wartime experiences with civilian life. And so that's a nice touch there. And again, something I would commend to all of you to consider reading. He dives into the complexities of wartime morality, the act of taking a life and what that does. Even though justified in combat and in war, it does take a toll on you and on your mental state as you think through doing that, or seeing what happens when an enemy takes the life of one of your Marines, one of your soldiers, one of your teammates out there. And so he delves into those complexities and the morality of war. And I think for those of us that matured through a lot of conflict, we think about that a lot, and we think through how military service and combat deployments and sending in the armed forces should always be a last resort because of the dangers and the loss of life and the impact it has on a variety of people, and not just the economy and everything, but it's so powerful. It's much more than what it seems, which would be a simplistic, just send them forward and let's get this over with. It's not that easy. And I think when you're younger, you may think it is, but Robert Leckie does an exceptional job of touching on those complexities and giving a personal testament to how much it changed him as a man. This book has been praised countless times, which is again why I think it's in the series The Pacific by HBO, the mini series, which also recommend to all of you out there to watch that. And it dives into a lot of the things that Robert Leckie deals with. But it's praised not just by me, but by many others for its honesty, for its realism, and for the literary merit. I mean, you'll read this book and you're like, wow, this is a brilliant guy. I wish I had a chance to meet Robert Leckie, his wife Vera, or any of the people, his family, just because he was a brilliant guy. And God bless this nation for putting people like that in positions where they can educate us with a book. Because I just think I'm so grateful to this Marine for doing that. It helped me think through a lot of the things as we get ready to potentially be in competition or conflict in the Pacific. Again, we got to be reading this book and many others to think through how that's going to happen, because a lot of the lessons learned will be things we encounter again. So let me touch on my 3 big takeaways for this book, Helmet for My Pillow. The first one is no brainer, that war is brutal and it has a lasting impact, not just on those that lost their lives and the families that are now without a father or a mother or a brother, but it has a lasting impact on those that return from war as well. It's perhaps the most prominent takeaway of this book. The book does not shy away from depicting the harsh realities of combat with vivid descriptions of fear, exhaustion, and death. And like I said, it also explores lasting psychological scars, at least on Marines in this case, but on soldiers in general, including PTSD and the struggle to adapt to civilian life. And so that's my first big takeaway that all of you will get from reading this book. My second big takeaway is on the camaraderie and the resilience in the face of adversity. It's amazing what you can do when you have to do something, when it's a life or death decision or moment. And despite the bleakness for this book, Helmet for My Pillow, it also highlights the strong bonds that form, lifetime bonds between Marines, soldiers, you name it, during wartime. And quite frankly, I know that many of the bonds that I have made in combat, or those that I've got just in service in general, will be lifetime. And I will be friends with those individuals, men and women, for the rest of my life. And then the third big takeaway, and I think this comes more with maturity and time, is questioning war and its meaning, and just thinking through all that. And we've got a lot going on right now in our country. We got a lot going on in the world. And hopefully those that are given the honor of making decisions are elected leaders. They really question the war and the meaning, and whether or not we're just going to go back and forth. They bombed us, we bombed them, we go back and forth, or we have long-term thoughts, long-term diplomatic resolutions, long-term ideas and strategies on how we're going to solve and resolve these problems, not just going back and forth and killing one another, because that doesn't solve anything. It makes us feel good momentarily, but long-term, what's the strategy? And this book really had us, my third big takeaway, questioning war and the meaning of it. Helmet for My Pillow Pillow is just an exceptional read. It's a powerful and thought-provoking book that provides a raw and intimate look at the life of a Marine in World War II and specific battles that Robert Leckie went through in times with his buddies. To me, it's a testament to human resilience, brotherhood, and the enduring impact of war on individuals and society. And for all of these reasons, and quite frankly, just because I'm a Marine, I'm putting Helmet for My Pillow on my 2024 reading list. All right, everyone, that's my summary of the book. I recommend you go out and get it, whether at your local library, ordering it, whatever the case may be. More importantly, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Where was I right? Where was I wrong? What do you think I should continue talking about in my series and my channel here on YouTube about professional development? Put your comments below. Let's have a dialogue here, and let's continue to talk about how we can get focused on our own personal development. Thank you.